bleeding here. I'm bleeding here.
Okay.
I'm bleeding here.
Can you call the hospital? Ambulance?
I need an ambulance fast. Get me to the hospital.
And Mark Lippert was transferred to a hospital. The U.S. ambassador to South Korea recovering today after that brutal knife attack.
That attack happened in Seoul, Korea, and it's raising a lot of security questions about a city that's normally seen as safe, and people are really seriously concerned about a lot of our ambassadors all over the world.
This becomes the question now. What of the security of our diplomatic corps? Staying with us, my former colleague from the Congress, Michael Patrick Flanagan, who is Skyping in from Washington, D.C., and likewise joining us via Skype to go in depth on the whole subject, Ambassador Eric Edelman, who is very familiar with the diplomatic corps and had his own posting to a place that may be increasingly dangerous, Turkey. Ambassador, thanks for your time. Looking back at this, how did security allow someone to get close to the ambassador, especially given the history of this suspect in South Korea?
Well, I don't think we know all the facts yet, J.D., but from what I understand, Ambassador Lippert was understandably anxious to be the public face of the United States in Korea, to help our public image there. It's a natural tendency that I think all ambassadors have, and I think he was, basically not within the ambit of a protective detail. We triage our posts according to the level of the threat. When I was in Turkey, I had a protective detail because it was a high threat post. When I was ambassador in Finland, I walked around all by my lonesome because there was no real threat against the U.S. ambassador. I think, unfortunately, what we're learning is in the modern day and age, there's absolutely no place now that's not high threat to U.S. ambassadors.
So how concerned are you for yourself, your well-being?
Well, now that I'm retired, I don't really worry about it too much, although as my children point out, if you go to Google Earth, you can see our car in our driveway. But no, I think, to be serious about it, I think all U.S. ambassadors currently serving have to be a bit more concerned about their security than they might have been in the past.
Yeah, the layers of security provided to embassies are very impressive. In the 2 years I spent in Iraq, I met the ambassador several times where I was, and whether it was the diplomatic security service or the regional security officer or even the Marines at the embassy, the cordons of security around an ambassador in a high-risk place are very high, and you've correctly observed it not so much in other places. Are you looking forward to a plus-up in the DSS and the RSO worldwide to make sure that all ambassadors have the same level of security?
I suspect that there will be a review of what happened in the Department of State and in the Diplomatic Security Bureau. And if passed as prologue, there will be some plus-up and some increase in security. I think the problem we've gone through historically in the State Department is that we go up, a level when there's been an attack, and then we tend to let our attention to the problem flag. Resources, because they're scarce in the Department of State, tend to get repurposed to other things until the next event.
Ambassador, as you were speaking, let me explain what our viewers are seeing. We just saw a videotape of the suspect, and we're using that figure of speech. We believe he was the man involved in the attack.
Well, everyone saw him do it.
Right. So the important thing to note is, apparently he was involved in a previous attack, throwing a concrete block at the Japanese envoy to South Korea. So I guess in addition to a general plus-up, Ambassador, our intelligence people are going to have to be assessing the threats, and even when none appears, it's better to err literally on the side of safety and security.
Yes, J.D., I agree up to a point, but I think one has to bear in mind that part of the job of the ambassador is to get out and be the face of the country and to make appearances, and it's not easy, it's impossible really with the resources we have to screen every audience completely. I mean, I went and spoke at a number of universities in Turkey, in part because they were the most hostile audiences. I mean, there's no point in really preaching to the converted. So, there's always a risk that when you do that, someone is going to slip through the screen who is going to be a potential threat. And I think that's just a reality we have to live with.
Mindful of that reality and also the reality of changing atmospherics in Turkey, we've asked the ambassador to stay with us. When we come back, Eric Edelman on Turkey today as opposed to Turkey when he served as ambassador there and what to expect. That's next as America's Forum continues on this busy Friday from Newsmax TV. Welcome back. Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan warns about potential unintended consequences that may result from defeating ISIS in Tikrit. The Prime Minister says that an assault on the terrorist organization could ignite a bloody sectarian war between Sunnis and Shia in Iraq. Let's continue our conversation now with former Congressman Michael Patrick Flanagan and former U.S. Ambassador to Turkey Eric Edelman. Eric, what do you make of Erdogan's warning? The concerns that Turkey has, explain what they are.
Well, Turkey has a number of concerns here in the struggle with ISIL, some legitimate, some less so. The legitimate concern they have is less focused on Iraq than it is on Syria, and the fact that the administration is not doing anything at all about the Assad regime's assault on the Syrian people, which is essentially creating a jihad factory in Syria, a lot of which has overflown into Iraq. On the point you quoted, JD, that the Prime Minister is making, he's not 100% wrong. I mean, I think the problem is that it reflects a little bit of the Turkish government's willingness to identify with Sunni elements, even if they're extremist, around the region. But he's not wrong that the use of the Shia militias and the presence of senior Iranian officers like Qasem Soleimani, the commander of the Iranian Republican Guard Corps, in the fight against Tikrit, it could actually make the situation worse in Iraq, not better, by alienating the Sunni population and making it even more complicated to liberate Mosul and/or Anbar province.
From a Turkish perspective, it's more complicated still, I think. They have a huge Kurdish problem from their point of view in the southeast portion of their country. And as the Kurds rise in ascendancy in Iraq and actually field their own army against ISIL, or have the Peshmerga being the favorite child of our army, which has been true for a long time, how discomforting are the Turks by that, and how do they worry about that?
No, it's certainly a huge concern for them because, as you point out, about 20% of the Turkish population is Kurdish. They have the largest Kurdish population in the region, and it's been a major concern for Turks since Ataturk founded the republic in terms of national unity, and therefore it's a major issue for them. The irony here is that the Turks over time have more or less made their peace with the KRG, the Kurdistan Regional Government in northern Iraq, and have developed reasonably comfortable relations, both political and economic, with that government. What's more discomforting to them is what's going on with the Kurdish population in Syria, and the concern that they had that a successful Kurdish enclave in northeastern Syria might make the PKK a less tractable partner in the negotiations they're undertaking at home for resolution of the Kurdish problem in Turkey. And that's the reason why you saw them so hesitant to see the siege of Kobani lifted in the last several months.
Eric, about a minute remains. I understand Erdogan paid a visit to Saudi Arabia to sit down with King Salman earlier this week. Do you think those two countries will work to unify Sunnis in the fight against Iran?
I think what that really represented, the Prime Minister, was in Saudi Arabia twice in the last couple of months, once for the funeral of King Abdullah and now his most recent visit. I think what it really speaks to is the isolation of Turkey in the region. Turkey started out with having a policy of no problems with its neighbors, and more recently the Prime Minister's aide described their policy as sort of splendid isolation because they've got so many problems with neighbors. And I think that was really an effort by the Prime Minister to try and overcome some of that isolation. I'm not sure how much will come of it. I think the Saudis are quite suspicious of Turkish support for some of the elements extremist elements connected to the fight in Syria and Iraq.
Ambassador Eric Edelman, as always, sir, we appreciate your past experience and what you can offer in terms of analysis from that experience. Michael Patrick Flanagan and I will be back to get real about Capitol Hill next.